Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Noel and Robert Show, or the Robert and Noel Show, depending on who you followed to get here. How you doing, Noel?
Hey Rob, nice to see you after another few weeks. It sounds like what was I gonna say? Sounds like you've had we talked a little bit before, but sounds like you've had a good week, a very consistent week of marathon training. No, sorry. No, you're not marathon training. Yes, you are marathon training.
Yeah,
Are you going back?
I am married.
You're on marathon training. For some reason I thought you were doing a half Ironman again. No, you chose Chicago Marathon. That's your thing.
Yeah, so I'm
Have you
running the Chicago.
booked flights and everything yet?
I've looked, and I will have to do it very shortly.
I was
I
gonna
haven't
say
booked.
because around marathon time, shouldn't it all start filling up very quickly?
It sure will do. It sure
Yeah.
will do. Luckily, I have some family who live in Chicago. They don't know that I'm coming yet, so
Oh,
I
okay.
may try and see them. That helps. But I love Chicago. It's a
Yeah,
great.
you've been there.
So we'll see how it goes. How is your Ironman training going?
Well, there is, and you pretty much just nailed it on the head when we were talking before this episode started. But there is really nothing to report exciting. Just grinding away. It's not one big day, and this is so cliche. Everybody's heard this if you're in this sport at all, in any sports. It's not one big day that does it. It's small, consistent days over a long period of time, and it's been just every day, just something because right now I'm pretty much just full-time training and making content and trying to get as fit as possible.
This is really
But
important. Like, a lot of people want these like weeks where they improve hugely week over week and over week, and
right.
consistency. Like dedication is more important than motivation. Like you're never going to be motivated every single day,
Yep.
and
Or
it's
discipline.
disciplined. And if you improve by, I think you was if you improve 10% immediately and then plateau, you're going to have less goal gain than if you say improve 2% every month for 6 months. Like
Yeah.
you have more of an improvement. So compound works. And yeah, if anybody listens to this is training for something big, just kind of stick at it. Not every week is super sexy and exciting. Um, you know,
I absolutely love the topic of consistency because it's so true. Because you can think about okay, on Saturday I have a big workout, huge, and I'm gonna add an extra hour to make it even bigger. But then say you do it, and the next 3 days you're basically off, and you're tired, unmotivated because you had your big day.
yeah,
That is not as productive as getting up and doing something Saturday, doing something Sunday, doing something Monday, just every day. That is what makes a great athlete. Years and years of that. So,
yeah. So if you just started, we'll speak to you in 3 years' time and see how you're getting. But
and I will say, as someone who, and sorry, this is sorry, but not really our topic today because we have a really cool topic in store that I'm excited to talk about. But I just want to say, as someone who has made so many mistakes like that, of like going way too hard and then being like, oh, yesterday was horrible. And then you like are useless for the next week because you did too much. And this is such a big trap. So many runners, triathletes, endurance sports people fall into. Um, anyways, yeah, I do think that's just a big reminder. So,
yeah.
and
So
that's what me and Rob are doing right now. Me and Rob are just consistent and nothing really crazy to report. How's
no,
the weather there, by the way, Rob?
it's shocking. It's well, I'd say it's shocking. 85% of the time, it's shocking. I'm in London, UK, because there's other Londons in the world. So but I'm London, UK, and
When UK people, when British people say shocking, that normally means bad, right?
yes, yeah, it means
Yeah,
bad.
shocking is
It's
bad.
not
It's not good. It's not like shocking, like good.
no, no. It's like America. Like I say the word awesome quite a lot. It's probably the most common word spoken in America is awesome.
It is.
But the actual word of awesome is you're meant to use it when something bad happens. So
What?
like,
No way.
yeah, so if you go to like the dictionary, normally the first description
What?
of what awesome means is something bad. And so if you say like we've a door blew off a plane, that was awesome. Like it was an incredible event. which is not how most people use the word. Anyway, this is not English with Noel and Rob.
But no, but that's like fascinating because I see this is every time. I don't know if you guys have listened to our last 4 or 5 episodes. Pretty much every time Rob comes up with a fact that I haven't heard of because I didn't know that. So I'm pretty sure that's new. I definitely didn't know awesome means bad.
Yeah,
but yeah, shocking. I do know shocking in the UK. They're typically referring to as like that's a bad thing. Like I had a shocking day.
Yeah,
it's not a good one. Yeah.
I had a shocking run. I had no energy.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, today what we're going to talk about is going to talk about gear. We started off last week or ended last week talking about carbon running shoes, and we're getting in a bit of a debate. But now I'm deep in marathon training again. I am now, since January, I've bought 3 new pairs of shoes, and I'll explain that. I've bought 2 new tops from Lululemon, and I'm not sponsored by Lululemon, but I know I'm going to wear them the whole time because they're exactly the same top as before. So I know what I like. I like routine, and I'm now in the mindset of buying new gels because I'm doing so much training that I need gels for running. Like I did 47-kilometer run last week, and so it's getting long. And so how we're going to talk about this, we're going to start from basically entry level gear to elite. So obviously Noel is a very, very highly elite athlete, and there's a lot of people who will listen to this who are elite or pros or people who are amateur age group racing. So skip to the end if you want to hear us talk about the difference between Di2 and SRAM.
We'll get really specific and we'll start with like kind of beginner entry stuff, and then if you want to listen to like real deep stuff, skip to the end. I would guess.
And the reason for this is that is probably the single biggest question that I get asked about is running shoes.
Same.
And I've had a lot of people go back and forth on. I try and be very helpful on Instagram with people who DM me, but I've had a lot of comments recently saying, "Tell me what shoes to buy."
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't tell you. I can describe each type of running shoe, but for example, my feet don't fit into Adidas shoes as well. But they're basically molded around Nike shoes because I've used Nike since the age of 8. And so I'm very comfortable in those shoes. So why don't we start off with the beginner piece of equipment? And I think you can disagree with me or agree with me on this, Noel. It almost doesn't matter. It's about comfort.
I 100% agree. Like if we're going to go like the running shoes are not one size fits all 100%. And I guess you get that question too. One of my biggest questions, most frequently asked questions ever is what type of shoe should I buy? And you're right. It's like literally for running. I want to start running. I want to start running. I have gym shoes, but what type of shoe? And you cannot I cannot answer that. I can tell you exactly, like you said, I can tell you exactly what these do, what these feel like, but you need to go to a running store, talk to one of the staff that's knowledgeable, and let them find you a pair, and then go run around the store like your mom used to have you do, run outside, do a little jog and see like, these are good. And I'm telling you another trick, that, Rob, and this is another thing. Once you find a pair you really like, I stick with it. I have I found Brooks, my training shoes, Brooks Ghost. I've used that same shoe for 10 years now. I just, once you find it, there's no point in changing. Maybe like the new model or something, but so it's not one size fits all.
I remember when I was younger, I probably bought stuff to kind of look cool. And I think there's probably an age difference in people who listen to this podcast of people who are, our age around 30 and above. And then there'll be people, I've had a lot of younger guys message me who are starting running. They're 16 to 18. They're in college. They're running quite competitively. And I'm just like, first of all, just enjoy it and believe you can do anything. But it's like one of those ones where you'll get sucked into what does the cool athlete wear. And I remember playing football. I still don't really regret it, but I kind of look back. Football meaning soccer in the US, so football in the UK. I used to have really cool, and in America you call them cleats. We just call them boots.
Yeah, we do.
So my football boots, I always had Nike Vapors, which if you have a Google of them, they were always the cool ones that either Cristiano Ronaldo wore or Ronaldo back in 2003. They were like the ones that Nike put on the billboard, and I'm like, I want those shoes. and I'd always get them in like orange or, really light green, and they were always really, really bold. But I always remember them being extremely uncomfortable. And I didn't care. And they would always be like half a size too big or too small. And as a kid, you're growing, so you kind of pick a size and you run with it. But I look back now and go like, that's completely the wrong strategy. I bet there were better people in my team playing better because they had more comfort. And so when it comes down to even running, I'll see people, it doesn't matter what pace you're going, but it's sometimes quite easy to spot who's quite new to running, or someone asks you and they tell you they're new to running, and they may be wearing the orange Alpha Flies by Nike.
Yeah. For
And
like an easy group run. Yeah.
And there is something in placebo and feeling good. Like if you feel good, you run good, and that gets a bad rep. Because I think if you do feel good, which can come down to looks and what you're wearing and the fit of your clothing, again, it comes down to comfort. That can have a massive benefit to you psychologically, but it's not going to do you any good for your main goal, which is actually improving your running or improving your fitness. And so I see people wearing Alpha Flies and they'll be on the gym doing a walk.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're like, these are $250 shoes or more, and you're wasting them. And like another thing about this is like, yeah, there's like the really flashy shoes. But like when I found these, I've been trading in Brooks like for 10 years. It's like I go to the store and I'm like, I know what I want. I want the Brooks Ghost. Even though there's like beautiful, cool, awesome, like brand new Vaporflies, brand new this, that. And like, that's so like I would love to try a different pair, but I know what works for me. So I'm just gonna go right to the Brooks section. And it's just kind of how I suggest any athletes, when you first start running is when you find it, stick with it. And a lot of times it's not what other people are wearing.
Yeah, correct. And it's also, again, I say price agnostic. Like I say just buy the cheapest pair of shoes. The reason often I buy, I have some wacky colored shoes is they're the cheapest. And I think this is the other thing. If you're just starting out in a sport, like I don't do 99.9% of sports in the world. So for those sports, I don't buy expensive gear. If I was going to start playing badminton, for example, I had during my childhood, I played an awful lot of tennis. And so I would get very good tennis gear if I picked it back up again now. But if I was playing badminton, I would go and spend $30 and not care about what I get. And that's the other thing. Like if you're just starting off, don't spend loads of money.
Good example of that. I just started skiing recently here in Vermont. I'm a full-time triathlete, but I just started skiing just because there's snow and I was like, I don't give it. I just went and bought the cheapest pair of cross-country skis because they're just clunker skis. I'm not like trying to be like super. And I went and bought just the cheapest pair. I'm like, well, I'm not going to be like super into this like all year round. I'll just buy something just to have.
And the irony is, if you buy the crappy looking gear or even secondhand or whatever it is, I mean, I've bought secondhand gear all the time. The irony is that's what the elite athletes often do. They'll buy the secondhand battered up stuff because actually they know they don't need it to be in pristine condition. And so if you actually want to jump the gun and try and look the part as if you've done something for 20 years and you're an expert, get actually the knackered gear that's already been used. Because sometimes it's certainly in skiing is one of those ones where if you see someone with beaten up skis and they, like a backpack, you kind of know they're an extreme skier. So it can kind of work both ways. It's like, try not to buy into the hype. Try and buy things that are comfortable. And looking good does play an important role of performing, but because it plays into your psychology, like you want to perform better when you look good and all this stuff. But try and pick carbon. What would you say? Would you say it's the same with cycling? Like if someone's going to start cycling, what would you tell them to buy?
Yeah, it's 100% the same as cycling with the same. I would say go to your local bike shop. I would definitely say don't order online until you if you don't actually have a bike and you're like, I really want to get in a triathlon and I'm looking for a triathlon bike. I would go in person to a shop because you can look at it, they can fit you on it, and a lot of times there'll be super overwhelming choices. You've never heard of any of this stuff. Like, what the hell is a Di2 or Shimano and all of this type of crankset all on these websites. And I feel like it's so overwhelming that you have to that would be when I first started like a foreign language. I don't know. I don't know how to interpret this or what these mean or what's the difference. So I would say go to a bike shop and get not the coolest bike. I would say get the bike that you think like, hey, this will last me a year or two. This will be a really good starter bike to try to do a triathlon, and I think if you like don't put too much pressure on like I need this really good bike, you'll like enjoy the sport more. You'll enjoy like you're not running like you're not wearing $350 Alpha Flies to go out on a 5K. So it's like this is your practice bike. I picture it like that.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. And I think with bikes, this is going to again, I have a different perspective on glucose trackers. We talked about this last week.
I did have some disagreement.
I think it's the best money I ever spent because I made informed health decisions that have impacted me now for over 2 years. And so even though it's expensive, I made real health decisions based upon it that have benefited me. Same thing, like a bike fit in the UK, a bike fit to anyone who doesn't know, I didn't know what a bike fit was until I started doing Ironman. You go onto a machine that's indoors with a bike professional, someone who's an engineer, or she has been an elite athlete. They'll stick you on this like rig. It won't look like a bike. It'll look like metal poles up and down, and they'll get you into the right position. And in the UK, it'll cost you about £150, give or take. That's $250. We don't know exactly what the exchange rate is. And you might think, wait, I'm going to spend £150, £200 to sit on a thing and not get anything. But they'll then tell you which bikes are suitable. And
so worth it.
Yeah, because then they'll tell you which bike to buy. And this comes back to like the sexy looking at the gear that's sexy on a billboard is like the best marketed brands in the world are probably Specialized and Trek. They're two of the big American brands who can spend a lot of money. So a lot of people want to ride those bikes. Like a lot of people want to ride the Specialized SL7 because the top riders in the world ride it and they've got massive marketing budgets. However, the stem length may not work for you. The saddle height may never go to the right place that you need. You may think it's really weird to look at when you're sat on the bike, and looks when you're sat on a bike. If you're new to cycling, jump on a few bikes to understand how they look and feel, because they've got different handlebars, different handlebar width. You never want to buy the wrong bike if actually the geometry is incorrect for you, etc. And me saying words like geometry may be quite scary, but once you sit on basically a bike simulator, the professional's going to tell you, hey, Specialized is not going to work for you because your hips don't move in the right way, or your flexibility is not in the right place, and you'll spend £200 to avoid making a big mistake buying a big bike. Because you, generally speaking, if you buy a bike, I've just sold my giant, I forget what the racing bike was called, but I had a giant racing bike.
Giant Trinity?
No, not the triathlon one, the road bike.
You don't have a bike anymore? You sold your bike?
I've got a different road bike.
Oh, okay,
so
okay.
I don't have like a racing road one. Like, like you sell it for a loss.
Yeah.
So like,
another thing is also like, you will say you kind of say you get the bike you wanted, the flashy bike, which is totally okay go for it. But if you really do like go against the advice of what a bike fitter said, and you are on a bike that really doesn't fit you, it's miserable. You won't want to ride it. It's so miserable.
Yeah, and it comes back to this one thing that we said at the beginning, which is not a specific piece of gear to buy. It's just comfort. Yeah. And I think as a beginner, like you have to just prioritize comfort, because if you're uncomfortable in something, you don't want to do it anymore. And if you're comfortable, then you're going to want to do it more. And if you do it more, you improve. And if you improve, you see progress. And if you see progress, that creates happiness. Tony Robbins is a great psychological coach and a performance coach. A lot of you will know him from like infomercials and things that are clickbaity.
Was he a NASCAR driver?
No, Tony Robbins is like a performance coach. So if you type his name in, you'll probably recognize his face and think that some of you may think he's a spin doctor. Some of you think he just sells infomercials, but actually he's worked with 50% of the world leaders out there to make sure they're mentally sound to perform at their best. He's advised, royal families, billion-dollar hedge fund managers. He knows what he's doing. And you just have to feel comfortable, because when you progress, when you see progress, you feel happy. And there's one perspective that the secret of happiness is actually seeing progress every single day. And so if you're not progressing, that's probably where the root of your unhappiness comes from. Because, and I think we've all been in those situations, when you see something positive happen in your life, you feel happier.
Yeah.
And I think
Well, yeah. And I think when I first started out also, one of the things was like, I was like, I feel like that bike's going to make me faster than this bike. But half the time you'll show up to these races if you just started, if you really, because I get so many questions of how you even get into this sport. You will show up to these races with your bike and you will pass people on $15,000 bikes who they're doing their best. They have a ton of money. They maybe have invested a lot in this sport, but you will pass them. You'll pass people on like super expensive TT bikes. And you're like, my little clunker is going faster than his bike.
Yeah.
So it's just, you really can't take it. Yeah, you really can't. Oh yeah, so you really can't. I forgot. I forgot. We're on a program where you guys can, if you are following our YouTube, you can look at what Rob is showing us right now.
Yeah, and so I mean, like if you're running, here's a checklist of what you need to buy. You need to go into if you're in the UK, it feels really uncomfortable to go into a running shop because British people hate asking for help inside a shopping store, whereas in America, you love getting help.
Really?
It's a massive cultural differentiation between UK and USA.
I'm annoying in the UK because I always, every time I go there, I'm such a talker.
Yeah, if someone tries to talk to me in a store like the Nike store, whatever, unless I've asked for their help, like I'm like, and this is the same with most British people. They're like, no, I just want to do it myself. Please don't help
Oh,
me. Whereas in America, you're like inundated with people helping you. It's like a cultural difference between the two countries. Anyway, I'm on Canyon's website because both Noel and I don't work with Canyon, but it's a really good example of what a beginner's bike is. And you'll see on my screen, there's a bike here on the right, which is something Noel and I would probably buy. It's a Canyon Aero CFR AXS.
well, I was on a Canyon for 3 years, Canyon Speed Max.
And they're really, really fast for multiple reasons. But you'll see here, this bike is £8,300. That's probably about $11,000 or something like that. And it's got a lot of stuff that you just don't have to worry about. But one of the main things, it looks cool. It looks cool because it's the main thing that's seen on a billboard, or that it's flashy. It's the bike that Vanderpool races on. He's a Canyon rider. But you see the bike on the left, which is the Canyon Grizzle. It's still a very expensive bike at £2,700. There's cheaper versions, but you'll see the geometry is different. So like the bar at the top, it's slightly pointing more upright. The seat's slightly more, it's got more of an angle to it. It's just a more comfortable bike to use. And so if you're a beginner, buy something that's comfortable. And then you can kind of upgrade to this fancy air road. So there's a million different choices to make, but it's one of those ones where just feel comfortable. For me, the checklist is if you're running, get something that's comfortable shoes, buy clothing that you know is already comfortable. Make sure you have, but if you're a man or a woman, have some leggings because they're easier to run in. They're normally waterproof as well. Get a running top that's light and waterproof so that you can run in the rain if you want to. I never run in the rain. And
really? As someone who's British, you don't run in the rain.
I sometimes can't avoid it.
I hate it. But
if it's raining and I'm looking out the window, I'm not going out in it. If I'm running and it rains, then I sometimes have to just put up with it. And then if you're cycling, just get some comfortable cycling shoes. Get some carbon-based, sole carbon shoes because they'll help you push on the pedals, but don't go for the really expensive stuff. Make sure you enjoy it first.
Comfort is huge because this stuff is already so uncomfortable. It's hard. Running's hard. And so if there's little pinches, if it's like pinching or making you have blisters or making your Achilles hurt, you're like, it's already so hard that comfort's just huge.
And then nutrition. I think let's just finish off more for like beginner stuff is like nutrition is just eating whole foods, I think, and not worrying too much about do I buy Morton gels or Science and Sport gels or whatever. Just make sure you do the stuff that you were taught when you were 16 at school. Eat pasta the day before you run, so you have some, glucose in your blood, glucose in your body, and try not to eat. This may spark some people, but I see more and more really good runners not eating dairy like the day before. There's something about it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it is. This is not a vegan versus meat eaters argument. It's more like there's something about dairy in your body the day before seems to not work for a lot of people. So consider changing that up. Like I'm a full dairy meat eater. So like, but I don't eat
Me
dairy
too.
24, 48 hours before running.
Oh, do you
Uh,
not?
no, I feel better. I feel more lean. And then, yeah, try and eat something sugary before you run and take something sugary when you run, like gummy bears. Everyone can go into like um, a side store on the high street and just buy a pack of sweets.
Well, and how it first worked, like a lot of times these races you go to, if you sign up for like a local 5K, they'll give you like a goodie bag of stuff and from one of their sponsors, and it'll have like a science and sports gel or a Marn, I'll have some of a gel inside it. And that's how I first ever discovered my first gel. I like liked it. I was like, oh, that was really good. And so I just kept with those. I didn't overthink it. I didn't go with this. I was like, that was a cool gel.
Yeah,
And I like fell in love with the brand at the time. It was Power Bar.
yeah.
They don't even make it anymore, but
And
yeah.
so let's say you're a beginner and you've gone, actually, I enjoy this. I'm going to sign up for my next big event. So you've ran for 4 months or 4 weeks and you've gone, I'm going to take this seriously. What's the next thing you would tell people to sort of invest in if they're running, cycling, swimming?
Oh, yes. So you mean if they're like, okay, this is the next step up, like I'm actually liking it. I love training for this. I'm doing well. Well, so if you, I want to say in terms, so we're doing equipment. We're not doing like all
I would
around
say
stuff
no,
because
coaching.
I would
Like
say
if someone's
coaching,
got
but coaching,
£1,000 to spend,
we're doing
that's a lot of
equipment.
money.
And
But if
it
someone's
is
got
really,
$1,000 to spend, if you're spending 30% of that on training, I think, and you've never considered buying training before, it's a valid trade-off, right? You're probably going to
yeah. I mean, a coach will make anyone better. I think, especially if you don't know what you're doing and you're just starting, like all those training plans that there's thousands of training plans for running, marathons, half marathons, triathlons that you can just download. You can download sport specific training plans, like just how to get faster at this distance in
yeah,
swimming. Literally Chat GBT or all these AIs will like make one for you that are pretty accurate. But a coach can like help
yeah,
you mentally. And like, there's a lot of coaches, like my coach currently is $300 a month. It's fully,
not at the
fully
moment.
worth it for me because I've been without a coach. Rob, you're not coached, I believe, right? No, you're not coached. So it really is kind of for me, I like it not just because he just writes a generic plan, but I literally have someone I can talk to and be like, this doesn't make sense. Why am I doing this today? Or I'm not understanding like I feel really tired. Why am I feeling so tired? And he'll be like, well, because you did this, and that would take a lot out of you. So it's really good for people who second guess themselves. And like if you actually you did a 5K, you loved it, you have your shoes already, and you're like, you know what? I really want to see what I can do at a half marathon. And you would like some support, accountability, someone to like feed you, like be like, here's your week of workouts, and then ask you, hey, how'd that go? How did that feel? Do you have any questions? And you can be like, it's just amazing to have someone there, especially because a lot of people in your personal life, like I'm picturing like, I don't know, I'm picturing like a 20-year-old, 30-year-old, a 25-year-old woman or man. They have a boyfriend or girlfriend, and they're kind of the only person in their household or friend group that's like running. They don't really have anyone to talk to about it. They're like, oh, I don't want to hear more about your marathon training. It's like that's the thing with that a coach will help with, or like all these running groups and stuff.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. It's one of those ones
yeah, because I mean,
you're
you can only
accountable,
talk so
like,
much to
and
someone
I
who's
would say
not
if
into
you're
it about it. And
there's like my world of
yeah,
marketing, like sometimes you'll pay a creator to create a piece of content, but you then need to pay because, and the reason why you do it is because that advertising is going to perform better when you then run ads. And so it's the same thing, like you could run all year, but imagine if you took 20% of whatever budget you have and
right.
put it towards a training plan or a coach. Do you think that year would have been an improved performance from your running or not? And most of the time,
Yeah.
it's, unless you're exceptional at being a self student, you're going to improve, I think. The other thing I'd say is, if you've got, call it $500, book a race, because as soon as you book something, you become more focused. And there's no like, we're talking about gear to make yourself improve, but actually one of the things that will make
Yeah.
yourself improve is making yourself focus. And once you've spent money on something, you're going to use it. And in the case of training for an event, is in my experiences, you're like, okay, I'm now going to properly
Yeah,
dedicate
because
myself to the training, and then you see massive improvements in your performance because you're way more dedicated.
yeah. 100%, Rob. Like, yeah, because you can go out and like, uh, you can have like, oh, I love running. I'm gonna go do an 8 mile run. I'm gonna go do a 5 mile run. But then, like, you're kind of tired one day, and you're like, well, I just run. I've run. Like, when am I even running? Like, I'd rather go lift weights today. But if you have like 45 days until this marathon where I want to do well, then you're like, okay, like, you have an end goal. You have like a light at the end of the tunnel instead of just like, it is
Yeah.
possible to fall in love with running without really signing it or any of this without really having an event. But like, I'm telling you, training for something as opposed to just training, it's like the difference. It's like the difference between going to the gym for weight loss, like going to the gym
Yes.
just because you want to burn some calories. Like,
Yeah.
it's not really a chore anymore. It's like something you are like actively pursuing to get better at. Like, for me, when I have an event, it's
Yeah.
not really a chore anymore. Like, it's not a chore. It's more
I
of,
think so. That's
that's kind
gear
of how
without
I
talking about gear.
picture it. So yeah, sign up for one. That's a really good advice, Rob.
It's like,
Because these are getting expensive. Now, I guess that's not gear, but I guess it kind of goes hand in hand. But they are kind of expensive. Like, these races are getting really
yeah,
expensive. So it is
I mean, there's
kind of the,
more holistic. Like,
it is
okay, you're getting better at
money, but I
running.
guess you're
How are
right.
you
It's
going to
not
improve?
gear.
Part of that's going to be coaching or training plans. I think on the gear very specifically, there's two things I would say is okay, you've made the decision, you're going to become a bit more advanced, take things slightly more seriously. This is when you're going to want to have specific shoes for specific types of training. And normally I would say if you're a beginner, our definition of a beginner in this conversation is just get out there and start doing stuff. Like, if you're going from beginner to advanced, which is probably maybe more of everyone, you shouldn't be
Yeah.
lifting weights on your running shoes because there's no stability. Once you put on some training shoes, and I use Nike, so my Nike running shoes are Nike Invincibles. They're fully foam, but they're not stable. Like, they're not. If you push me, they're going to rotate a little bit. My ankles won't be stable. But if I wear my Nike Metcons, if you try and push me, I'm fully planted to the floor. Like, they are supporting my ankles and they're supporting my arch of my foot. There's just a world of difference, and it's going to help you avoid injury in my experience.
Yeah. I mean, not getting injured should be like also priority run for people who are just starting. Just don't get injured, because that like ruins all the fun. And especially if you start getting momentum and you're like, this is really starting to be awesome. Yeah. So and I know this sounds so so obvious, but it needs to be stated. Find really good socks too. Really good socks, so important, because you spend $300 on a pair of shoes, and you're like, I love these shoes, but like, why am I getting these horrible blisters? Why is this not working? It could be your socks. So simple, but they make really good running socks. One brand I love
I've had the same experience. I bought
Swift
some,
Wick.
again, I'm mentioning the same brands over and over again. But there's a routine to this. I buy the same brands because I know what I'm getting and I'm comfortable in them. Like Lululemon socks. Like, the Lululemon socks I have were great. And so I bought like 5 pairs of them when they were all 50% off.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I'm now sorted for like forever and ever and ever. Completely. And I think if you're also going from beginner to advanced
they're good quality socks, right?
in biking, there's I think the most obvious one is switching from manual gears to electronic.
Right. So with biking, yeah. So with triathlon bikes, you get into a whole new world. Not a whole new world, but like
I'll show
it's
my
kind of
screen.
like a good marker for like kind of yeah, let's share it. Is the old school is just normal shifting, where it's not it's mechanical shifting. It like but now they have it to where most bikes most top of the line higher end bikes you'll see have rim brakes, and they have electrical shifting where you literally have to plug it into a wall. You have to like plug your bike in, and you're like, why is it plugged in? One time I posted on TikTok a video of me charging my bike, and I'm like, why are you charging your bike? And I'm like, well, this is why.
Noel's hit the nail on
this
the
is
head.
literally
I
how
thought
you
this was
shift
really
the
weird
gears.
a couple of years ago when I saw electric.
A lot of times,
but here's an example of a bike. So this is a Canyon Aeroad. Once you start getting serious within bikes, this is one of the bikes which is sort of one of the fanciest. But this is what's called a manual changing gear shifter on a bike. You see all the wires, they're not covered up. Once you start getting serious about stuff, you want things to look good. You also want to go quicker. These wires are in the way. So the downside of this specific bike, if you're trying to get more advanced, is this is like a manual gear system. So what if anybody's ever been in an automatic car where you have gears on the steering wheel, it's very easy to change the gears versus manual. So it's like manual versus automatic. So it's like,
yes, that's a very good example. Very good example. And a lot of times these manual ones are not, these manual ones, like one really interesting example, one reason this would be like, well, why do I need that? Well, so for instance, say you're trying to go up a hill, a really steep hill, and you have manual, you have to like you have to like be prepared for the hill and like spin into it. I'm sure I'm not explaining this right, but with electronic, it literally picks the gear, it picks the chain up and moves
Noel's
really
hit the nail on the head.
fast.
It changes your technique, it makes it slightly easier,
just whatever.
But it feels way different. And so if you're learning to cycle, like you're not going to care about this, and you probably won't. You won't notice the difference. But if you're trying to get more advanced,
you don't need
this is going to make a massive difference.
So
if you look at this group set, it's called a group set. That's what a gear set is called on a bike. This is the Aeroad SL8, which is probably one of the cheaper ones that Canyon makes in terms of the racing bike. I know for a $3,800 bike,
they still have. I'm a little shocked they still sell.
It's crazy. Canyon get a bad rep for this because people think that's way too expensive for this for the specification. Whereas if you see this bike here, this is way too. This is very, very expensive, but it's £9,000 bike, so it's over 10,000. If you want to buy it, then it's not overpriced. If you don't want to buy it,
you think
then
it's overpriced? Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, I mean, but to be honest, even he's looking at, so it's 9,000 pounds, which is like, I don't know, like 11,000 US, maybe. I don't know. But to be honest, all of them, any brand check, Specialized, they're all like literally priced kind of the exact same.
And I think this is where, like, if you're a beginner getting slightly better,
be about
it's just about putting in the reps and getting outdoors and enjoying your running a bit more and seeing improvements. Then you enjoy it more, and then you improve. Once you start getting even better, I think this is where you get into nutrition.
Beautiful.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. It is pretty cool. Like the first time, I rode a mechanical forever for like 4 or 5 years. And when I got on my first one with an actual, what are we calling it? A Di2 or electronic shifters. I was like, whoa, that felt so cool. It's just like, it just feels professional. It's like, wow, that was, but they really are completely like, they really are not necessarily like another thing with electronic stuff. Once you start getting into that stuff, it's another thing that can go wrong.
I don't want to like people off, but fuel. A lot of stuff, like
bikes are already very hard. There's a lot of stuff.
I use these guys because
this and that. It's another thing that can go wrong. And if
their nutritional is generally pretty good,
wrong,
like the ingredients,
easily,
even though you may not understand some of these ingredients,
something goes wrong with your electronic shifter, like the core, the
ingredients in them are purely designed for endurance training and getting your energy up very quick.
Yes.
And as you'll see here, as Noel's already said, you're getting 6 gels here for £14, so it's about $4 a gel,
Or you lose your
and so
charger or something.
it does get very expensive. However, if you're going to be more advanced, you're going to really want to pay attention to your carb loading, like your carb loading phase, your pre-workout, your pre-fueling, and your fueling during your race. And as you start getting more advanced,
It
you
is more
start
advanced,
realizing,
yeah.
I think we commented on this a couple of weeks ago, Noel, it may have been your nutrition that separated your sub-9 Ironman from the others. We don't know. Yeah.
Well, yes, and also because another thing is, what I'm going to say is, we're talking about gear and money. The thing Rob is showing some this nutrition, running nutrition,
Yeah.
endurance nutrition, it's expensive. It's so expensive. I'll be like out on my long run and take a gel, and I'll be like, that was $4. I just threw
Yes.
$4, and because it is, you start thinking about that. For me, I'm like, well, if I eat 5 gels for this run, this run cost me $20.
66 grams.
Like, that's a $20 run. So it is really, I mean, a lot of this stuff really can be done, like Rob said, with gummy bears or a banana, but they do start getting like this stuff is fascinating to me. So if you are on our YouTube right now, if you're looking, we're doing a visual.
So you'd need 2 gels.
We're looking at
so 2
Science
gels
and
an hour,
Sport. It's a very
per
popular brand.
That's just in Britain, you have to say per 100 mils. 60 mils. Yeah, 60. Yeah. 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 What I do. This is what I do. Like I learned this when I started getting into Ironman. I watched Lionel Sanders. Lionel Sanders is quite famous for having a water
I think it
bottle
was
filled with
and
maple
I will
syrup.
say it's such a learning process too. Like when I first started, and like if
Nothing
you're
else.
first starting and
He's
then
just
you're like
drinking syrup.
starting to
So
move
like
into these
we'll show
gels
you
and stuff,
Morton here. Like
man,
Morton
it's
have bars.
just to
Morton
find
is a
something that
brand
works
that
for you
is
is
lead
such
sponsor of
trial and
Ironman and different things.
error.
Now,
You'll
if
be
we
like,
just go to their gel here,
like just to know
this
when
is
you
even
want
more
to take a
expensive.
gel.
This is like
or
the
like,
elite of the elite.
there's tons of data and research and people you can talk to, but it really is an experiment of one. These Science and Sports, a lot of times what I always look at, if I look at these gels, scroll down a little bit, Rob, to the nutrition facts, my eyes pretty much immediately dart to the carbs.
This is the elite gel
and
that
caffeine.
you'll see a lot of the elite
I pretty
guys
much immediately go to the carbs. So that's
40
66 grams of carbs.
So it's
£4 one of the 100
gel, and that equates to like, it's like 5 or 10.
No, that's good. So like for instance, I'm trying to take for an Ironman, I'm trying to take at the most 100 grams of carbs per hour.
I've changed it.
So I would only need
share that.
Okay, so I'm actually just wondering. There's 100 milliliter too. Is that a bigger one? Oh, but they don't come with that. The gels are 60 milli. Okay.
Yeah.
So I would need 2. So for instance, if I'm going with my plan of 2 gels per hour, and I go on a 3-hour run, that's 6 gels. I just spent. How much did I just spend? $15, like $20, $20, $20. So yeah, you just need to find, and they're actually, this is crazy, guys. It's pretty fascinating too. There's actually a lot of endurance athletes I follow. Yeah. Shout out to Cody Beals. He actually makes his own like gel. He like buys like soup. You do that too? He like buys the sugar. Yes, he's Canadian. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this is like as expensive. I don't think it gets more expensive than Martin Gel. Like Martin Gel literally is like
Yeah.
$4.50 per thing.
And
And
it's
I've
one of
like
those ones where
wasted half of them before,
you
and I'm
then
like, well,
start
I'm
paying
just like
attention to
burning money.
hydration. I
Just
think
like
once you start getting
burning.
more elite, and elite is depending on who you are, because Noel's elite, but then Noel wouldn't call himself elite versus a pro triathlete. So I think Noel's elite, and Noel compares himself differently. Like everyone has different comparisons, but
We
for
don't
me,
see it on the
elite's a
screen.
mindset. Like if you're focused on something to the nth degree and you're waking up every single day focusing on it, you're kind of elite. And once you start doing that, you've got to dial in.
It's not on the screen.
Well, yeah.
But Martin Gels, for instance,
For sure.
is
It's like apparently like there's a great guy
there it is.
called Chris
They are like this.
Nix.
It's
I
like
forget
this
his surname, but
liquid.
he's
It's not
a
even a liquid. It's like
one
it's
of the
just supposed to
first
like kind of coat
autistic
your
runners
stomach
and
to where it's
triathletes to
like
complete Iron.
perfect. And I'll be honest, it works. It works
Sorry, Chris.
very, very, very well. It's just like a punch in the gut every time. You're like, ugh, that was like. They're just hard to buy. They're just so hard to buy because they're like, I don't know. I'm stingy, so. But yeah, so here's 40. It looks like it's $40 for. But there is a reason these. So a lot of the one thing I do like about Martin, another thing is that it's very simple. Like you don't have like a lot of companies will have to be like, well, what flavor do I like? What level of milligram? There is like one flavor for Martin. It's like the one with it's plain. It's like there's no. It's the one with caffeine or the one without caffeine. Do you want the drink mix or do you want the gel? Like there's not really any. It's simple and it's very also like already divided into math. Like this drink is 160. Is it carbs or calories? 40 grams of carbs and 100. So this drink powder is 40 grams of carbs, 160 calories. Get that down. You only need like X amount more. So that's a very, and I will say a lot of, if you are following elite marathoners and elite triathletes, they're all pretty much exclusively using Martin. Like Kipchoge, yeah. I like that. I like that. Yeah, I guess it is a mindset. If you're like die hard, like this is what you do all day, then that no. He has Down syndrome, and and my first ever Ironman Florida in 2020, in November 2020, was his the year he did. So we saw him on the course, and he has a guide. But yeah, he is the first ever person to complete an Ironman with Down syndrome, and his first one with Ironman Florida. So yeah, I remember that. He might. Yeah, it really is. And that's the thing with talking about triathlon and running, and like running is it really does come down to like, so well we've covered, you need your shoes, you need a good pair of shoes, you need to get your nutrition, you need to find clothes that are comfortable, and that's why running's so simple. Running, you got it covered. The bike's kind of the same as shoes. You want to start cheap. You don't want to like spend 10K because this bike's awesome and you saw Jan Frodeno running it, and then a year into it you're like, I don't like doing this, this stuff is really hard and miserable, and you're stuck with a 10K bike that you've used twice, like yeah. Because you can't go use these like TT bikes. You can't just like go take out with a group ride. Like you can't. You can, but you're the triathlon dork who shows up to like they ban it. Yeah. I was gonna say we haven't even touched wetsuits yet, but that also it's a whole other thing. Yeah. Shimano. Shimano. What is so a lot all these top end bikes, right, guys? Okay, so you the carbon frame is its own it's kind of they're all kind of the same, like Diamond, Canyon, Specialized, Ventum. They're all like these nice what makes a bike like really start getting really fast and expensive is the components. Like you can have a carbon frame, a Canyon carbon frame and a Specialized carbon frame. If we're talking about speed and weight, they're like kind of the exact same. When you start adding these Shimano or Di2, and then you add like either Ultegra or on mine Durace components, which is like the top. All these little things, you can add like a bottom bracket. You can add like carbon. Yes. So and then you can start getting members, and we haven't even touched the wheels yet. You can start getting like my wheels alone, just the wheels are, and they're sponsored. I did not buy these. From Evolve Aero are $6,000 just alone. Those are just the wheel. Those are just the wheels. So the bikes are kind of all the same. They look very cool. And then that's what makes bikes complicated and expensive is you can start adding like you accessorize it. All the accessories they get like more and more expensive. Like literally just just like the bottom bracket, which you don't even see. Like you don't even see this in my bike. You can't even. It's like the little. That's like a $600 piece of equipment. So it's just yeah. So fun, enjoy it, fun, like learn to love it before dropping your month's rent on it. Learn to love it. Be comfortable and and I guess yeah, we didn't really talk about. I mean, start knowing how to nutrition is very very complicated. But another thing is like if you are, I'm picturing someone who listened to this podcast going to the running. I'm picturing someone who just listened to this episode is like motivated now to go to a running store and go like, hey, I want to know about. They're gonna have all the gels, all the gummies. They're gonna have all that stuff there. All the equipment you need for rolling. It's very easy to go into those stores and get sucked in and like, I want this, I want that, I want that. So just I guess it be patient. And another thing with stuff and gear, because you just start accumulating it. Like over the years, I have like 15 pairs I have like 15 pairs of sunglasses. I have like and it just starts coming along and the more you get into it. You don't have to get everything at once. Oh, well, and we didn't even cover recovery tools like Normatec boots and totally different thing. You're right. Yeah. We did have it. If you want to find out what I think about carbon shoes and training, and actually we did talk about this quite a bit last week. Our previous episode, we talk all about the ins and outs of carbon shoes, which we definitely will talk on again because I have some more thoughts on that. Like Nike just came out with Alpha Flies. Didn't they just come out? Like between episodes, they came out with them, right? Or something. I don't know. And they're hideous, hideous. But yeah, that's right. That's right. Oh my god. Really? Like runners? Is there someone named do you know someone named Mark Scott? Am I allowed to say that? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Oh, I know him. Know of him. Oh my god, that would be motivating. Yeah. Yeah. It's a topic that we can probably go on and on about. But which we might because we have always something to say about new gear. And please leave us a question if you have any bike questions, gear questions, any questions. But you can find us on Let's Run It Down. Noel and Robert Show is on previously What It Takes. We changed the name because this is a lot easier to find us and it's simpler and a few other reasons. but um but we're on Spotify, YouTube. Check us out on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok for now. Oh, what? Oh, right. Just from Americans? Just from Americans all over the world. I'd actually love to talk to you about this too. I was going to be my other subject to topic was TikTok, but I was so depressed about it because TikTok's kind of my livelihood and it's very, 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 very stressful. So that's good news. Rob, you don't sound too like you don't sound too worried. Although you are in the UK, so well, and you know who's lobbying against it? Facebook and Amazon. They're all talking. They're all paying off. They're all paying them off to vote yes to ban it. All kinds. Yeah. No, they're talking about giving people fines and stuff for having it on their phones. We are kind of off the subject, but yeah, no, I can't. It's horrible. But we are on TikTok, yeah. So Robin, what is our show actually titled? The Noel and Rob Show, or the Rob and Noel Show, or the Noel and Robert Show? Noel and Rob Show. Literally just type my name in or Rob's name in and go like, save, and leave us a review. Like, comment, subscribe, leave us a review, and yeah, good to chat with you guys. We will see you next week. Bye.